Hello, everyone. Welcome to our once monthly other talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. This is the one that we hold every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time to accommodate those who can't join us at our usual weekly time on Sundays of 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. I am your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes. And we are so happy to have you joining us. We have such a big, amazing group, really people from all over the place who do all kinds of things. It should be an enriching conversation and old friends and new. That's always exciting for us. So, as for the YouTube spiel, most of you know the drill already, but we do still invite you, if you have not already, to subscribe to our channel, to leave comments, to like this video, any other that you find interesting, enjoyable, or, just want to, for shits and giggles, support us. We appreciate that very much. And for some reason, last week's video is really popular. I don't know if you guys have any insights as to why that might be, but if you do, feel free to, give us some feedback on that. We would love to know what's working. But other ways to support us, of course, you can donate, you can get a t-shirt. I don't, I love to see when people show up wearing our shirts. There's just something really surprising and fun about that for me. But you can join our Facebook group. That's how we engage online mostly when we're not sitting here together in person, so to speak. And Instagram is going to be popping soon. I'm making some changes because I want to make sure that we're connecting more and more with the people who are drawn to the work that we are drawn to. Not that we do in the sense that it's about us, but the work that we are drawn to and feel passionate about sharing so that we can make this crazy world right now maybe a little bit better. So, if you'd like to work with us privately, of course, if you want some extra support, some extra guidance, we have a link for our booking page as well. And you'll be able to work with either Mushtaq or myself one-on-one, or with both of us together. And you can have an opportunity to get to know us first through a curiosity session. No commitments. We're just happy to meet with you and talk about where you're at in your journey and how we might be able to participate in that alongside you. So, without further ado, we're going to be revisiting a topic that is of critical importance here in the Nine-Sided Circle that we have touched on many, many times before. We've even done a couple talks about it previously, but it is never bad to revisit the foundational principles and practices. What do you think, Mushtaq?
I think that that's a most excellent idea.
Yep. So,
So,
self-observation, one more time for the people in the back.
yeah. So, this is a practice that Gurdjieff cribbed directly from uh, the Sufis of Turkey, Turkestan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all of the stans, the Turkic speaking peoples of the time. Though the name for it is actually in Arabic, and it is muhasabeh. Muhasabeh means to take account. And it is a fundamental practice found, for instance, amongst some of the Naqshbandi groups and the Yesevi groups. And we consider it very important, essential even. And Gurdjieff took it and called it self-observation because even back then people were afraid of Arabic words. Drop an Arabic word in a conversation and people go, ah, it's terrorists. But I promise not to terrorize you with this. So, Nora, what is self-observation?
What is self-observation? Well, it is a critical practice, as I mentioned. It is foundational. And as Mushtaq mentioned, we have the Arabic and Farsi, muhasabeh, meaning to take account, but it is a practice of awareness. It's meant to bring you out of trance. And as you know, if you watch our videos, we are really, really we are always harping on about the fact that we're trying to bring ourselves out of trance, not induce one, because, we live in trances. We are in trance states constantly, especially in this modern world where we are so overburdened by stimuli and the inputs that come with daily living these days. Technology, loud sounds, bright lights, all of those things. So, self-observation is a way for us to take a moment to slow down and just observe from a very, it's like you're not putting any presuppositions, any assumptions, any interpretations on what your senses are perceiving. So let's start there. How would you describe it, Mushtaq?
Self-observation is a way to see and break yourself of your own mechanical conditioning. And um, people say, oh, it's a simple practice, and it's simple, but it's really, really not easy. This is not an easy practice because it requires that you shut up and listen, and most humans don't like to do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's hard because our brains are kind of on overdrive now. So it does test us in terms of our ability, our patience, capacity to slow down. And this is something that we can build up over time. So if it's something you find that you've been struggling with, or that you will be struggling with once we teach you some of the principles and strategies of self-observation, just remember that this is hard for everyone. And it's like a muscle that can be built over time.
so, why should you do it? I can tell you one reason. It will help protect you against manipulation in spiritual, psychological, or political arenas, because it will allow you to see when you have been stimulated in a mechanical way.
Certainly relevant for these times.
Yeah.
I know a lot of us are interested in somatic work or, sensory motor stuff. And this can help you with those because it acts as a support when things get intense. It provides a sense of grounding that you may really need in those times when you're practicing these other exercises.
Yeah. And it gives you, uh, it will reduce emotional intensity and provide distance, uh, so that you can experience what you're experiencing more clearly. Did I see a question coming up here?
But
Yes.
yeah, okay, in the chat.
Uh,
So, yeah, when you were talking about the how it could help you with political, like I think of maybe and what you would think about this, all these addictions and this social media and this propaganda and things that we're getting bombarded with. uh, you find yourself getting on social media, and then 2 hours later you realize you just wanted to check something, and now time has gone by. Could that be something it could help you with?
Yes.
Yes. It allows you to catch yourself doing that.
Yeah. Because social media is a form of trance induction. Let's be very clear about that. Social media uh, is a way to put yourself into a deep trance and let yourself be manipulated according to the penchants of your conditioning. And that's what they want, because the longer you stay on Facebook, the more ads you see. And Facebook is designed to, one, hypnotize you, and two, feed you advertisements.
Mm.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
For
And
those of you who've been on Facebook for a while, you will remember when the Facebook page didn't refresh every 60 seconds to feed you more ads. You could stay on the page you were on and look at the articles you wanted to see. Y'all remember that? Anybody remember that? I remember that. And now you can't.
yeah. And for those who engage more with Instagram or TikTok, you know how those videos just keep on rolling one after another. And that's just another way that they keep you engaged. It helps you stay in that trance and you lose a lot of time that way.
Yeah. It used to be television. I remember a kind of hilarious uh, little one-frame cartoon of uh, a family sitting watching a television, and on it it said, "The real life adventures of the Nelsons," and it was a family sitting watching a television. During the 50s and 60s and probably 70s,
Hmm.
I stopped watching TV in the 60s, but I imagine that it was the same everywhere. People would spend hours staring at this box. And that was I mean, television is a wonderful form of trance induction because it's actually flashing lights at you at 30 frames a second, 60 fields, 30 frames for regular broadcast TV, which is the perfect flicker for inducing a trance. Just as an aside.
Any other questions so far or thoughts? Okay. Shall we continue?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the things that real self-observation gives you is agency. And again, this is the last thing that anybody wants you to have is agency.
Mhm.
We don't want you to have agency. We want you to be our mental slaves and send us all of your life savings. Not really, but that's how it goes most places.
Yeah,
Self,
we kind of touched on this when you were talking about Facebook and Instagram and
yeah,
stuff, but it really does give you an opportunity to see your patterns emerge, right before your observation. So all of those things that you do just habitually, the things that you tell yourself in your inner monologue, the way that you react when people say certain things or do certain things, and your biases and your assumptions, all of those things, given the opportunity, are revealed to you. So it's not always a fun process, but it's certainly educational at times. Um, yeah. Yeah, so this one is one that's relevant to me in my experience, certainly, is that it allows us to be playful and to have a sense of perspective about our everyday experiences and also the things that challenge us, whether that's physical pain or some kind of chronic anxiety or depression or a pattern of self-judgment. All of those things are kind of lightened when we can bring the detachment, the non-judgmentalness of self-observation to those experiences that we're having.
Yeah. And this is the hardest thing because self-observation demands that you struggle against judgment.
Mhm.
It's going to be nearly impossible, especially at first.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
struggle against your own subjectivity in a certain way. You want to view the experience in as objective a way possible. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Without presupposition. We
yeah.
all carry tons of presuppositions with us at all times, which is part of our programming. I mean, if you see a snake crawling along the path, most people are going to presuppose that that snake is dangerous. Most of the time, this is not the case. And even when it is the case,
We'll get to that question. Thank you, Diva.
yeah, um,
Even
it's
if
not
it
as
is,
dangerous as you
yeah,
think.
yeah,
So we have a presupposition. Snakes are dangerous. This presupposition must be challenged without getting bit by the snake. And Diva asked real quickly, is self-observation and self-remembering the same thing? And the answer is no. And
no,
as it happens in this evening's talk, we're going to be talking about self-remembering.
yes,
So we're going to draw a clear and distinct difference between the two. And we are going to go over as succinctly as possible the practice for each.
yep. But the thing is, self-observation makes self-remembering possible. So
Yeah.
there is a relationship there to be sure. Yeah,
We start here because this is the fundamental practice without which all of the other practices won't work.
yeah,
You got to clear out the detritus of your own consciousness. I love using that word, detritus, uh, before you can do anything else.
yeah. Usama, yes.
Hello. Forgive me. I'm in the car, so I don't know how the audio is.
It's good.
You're okay.
Perfect. Um, so I would love to hear you speak more about this judgment, um, thing, and how does self-observation in the way that we're talking about it now, like what's the difference, if there's any, between uh, that and retrospection, right? The way that I understand muhasabeh as far as like the uh, the traditional quote unquote Sufi way, right? Which is at the end of the day, or yeah, like before bed, you go through your day kind of walking backwards, um, and you're you're seeing like, hey, how did I spend my time? What did I do? What is it? Like really, like I take an account, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like if there's any overlap between retrospection and self-observation in the moment that requires presence, um, and judgment. Like I'd love to hear more about all of these things? Please.
You ask a very, very good question. And they are similar. Our point of view is that the standard Islamic way of doing this for those people who do it has lost a little bit in translation. Uh, because most of the time when a person just reflects on the day, they will run their patterns over it. This happened and it made me feel angry, or this happened and I was happy about it, or I don't want to ever do this again, as opposed to observing without presupposition. And that's the most tricky part. Um, and we're going to get into how this is done. But the processes are definitely related. Mert has something here.
Um, okay. This is bored actually.
Is it
Um,
board? Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Sorry, board. My eyes are bad.
Okay. Some days ago I was self-observing, and all of a sudden the question, what's observing, came popped into my mind, and it was almost like a shock because it seemed very real and consequential and caused a kind of sudden but short-lived dissociation. Short-lived because I observed my dissociation. Does that have anything to do with beginning self-remembering?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. You shifted from self-observation to self-remembering on accident. Stuff will sneak up on you no matter what.
Yeah. Well, um, thank you for that question. I want to touch back on Osama's question as well, because I think for people who are just starting out reflecting on their own behavior, sure, retrospection can be a good start, and it offers an opportunity for someone to think that feels bad, or I have bad feelings about that, or that feels good and I have good feelings about that, in order to create some kind of intentionality around moving towards change. But as Mushtaq said, I think that that stops short of where we're trying to get to with the practice of real-time self-observation. But everyone has to take their steps to get where they're going.
Yeah. And speaking of steps, yeah, we've covered the idea that self-observation is foundational for all of the deeper work. So the method, there are 3 steps, and I'm not going to go over the Arabic words at this point because uh, I'm just not gonna. Step 1 is to describe from the senses.
So you know what that means. That means taste, touch, smell, sight,
Yeah. So
touching.
let's get to the describe. When
Yeah.
you describe, you want to do it with as few presuppositions as possible.
Mm.
So you might look at an event that happened that day and you might say, I saw 2 men who were really angry with each other. And that's not what you saw. What you might have seen are 2 men who were speaking at each other in loud voices, whose body language was leaning towards each other, who had, as they spoke, tended to swell up, getting bigger and making themselves as big as possible. Do you see how that's different from two people angry with each other? You are dropping the presupposition of anger and describing what you actually experienced. Raphael.
So when you're saying presuppositions, are we talking about labels? Like just don't label whatever the sensation, whether it's auditory or visual, or even if you're feeling it, try not to put a label on it.
Yeah, that's a much easier way of saying it with less syllables. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, because I was just getting a little bit of a block there. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. We will make it complex, and then you can make it easy again. So, and the answer to you, Noor, is maybe not. Not in that way. We're talking about you guys behind your back.
Okay. Liz asks, how important is it to be describing this to yourself in language versus giving your attention to your senses to observe sometimes a pre-verbal way?
Work towards the pre-verbal, but language is the gateway. Are you familiar with Garfinkel's work in ethology?
She says yes.
Yeah. This is a little bit like that in that you are trying to get away from your cultural assumptions, as well as your individual ones. Um, Full disclosure, I did my BA in cultural anthropology. So I will occasionally refer to things that were pertinent in the middle of the last century.
So one thing you'll notice is that this is a practice you can do reflecting on a past incident and seeing how your senses respond to that reflection. Or once you develop some skill at it, you can begin to use it more and more in real time. And that's the goal, is to be able to do it more or less in real time, because that's going to be the most helpful to you in order to work towards breaking up the hold that your patterns have on you. And that takes time. It takes some dedication and some discipline. Again, I want to make sure that we're not confusing commitment to a practice for self-judgment. Let's be clear on that.
Yeah, if you're judging yourself, you're doing it wrong. So judge
Yeah.
that. So, step 2. So, first word, describe. Second phrase, from the senses. This includes touch and sensation, sound, sight, taste, smell, and internal dialogue.
Yeah.
Um, and this is hard for people to do because somebody might say to me, I feel sad. And I will say back to them, tell me where you feel sad in your body. Describe the feeling of sadness without reference to the sad. Maybe it's a heavy feeling in the chest, a lump in the throat. Maybe you are feeling your tear ducts beginning to activate. Um, any of these things. So you drop the label and describe the sensations as discreetly as possible. And you need to do this specifically with emotions. Emotions are feelings that you tell yourself a story about. A feeling is sensations in your body. All emotion starts with sensation in your body. And then you tell a story about that sensation. And here's the weird thing. Two people can have the exact sensation in the bodies and tell themselves a completely different story about it.
Yeah. Two people can experience the same. This often comes up with trauma, you know. Two people experience the same intense, crazy event, and they walk away having completely different responses to said event.
And this is true for just physical sensations. Pain is a good example. Somebody will say, I feel pain, right? And if you are doing self-observation, the first question is, where are you feeling this sensation? What does the sensation feel like? In linguistics, this is known as submodalities. So you can talk about the perception of this first physically, then visually sometimes, and then auditorially, and then at the level of internal dialogue. And each of those can become revelatory. So you include touch and sensation, sound, sight, including internal imagery, taste, smell, dialogue. Here's a weird thing. Your internal vision will be located within the screen of your mind in different places around you. Think of an image of something that made you happy. Picture that. Where does that picture exist in your mind's eye? For me, it's up here and it's pretty close. When I see it, eyes closed, eyes open, that's where the image is for me. When I think of something that is happened in the past that I didn't like, it's literally behind me. And it's usually pretty far away. If it's something in the past that I liked or was neutral about, it will be closer. So if you think of existing inside of a spherical, more or less, movie screen, which will project images in different locations, depending on what the image means. That's kind of what I'm talking about. We had a great experience when we were in Dubai a couple, 3 months ago. Um, we went to this museum and they had a virtual reality room.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you put on the goggles and you looked around. There were things going on everywhere, in different places in front of you, behind you. And
Below
it
you,
struck
above
me,
you.
yeah, it struck me as, yeah, this is like how we experience our own visual field. So when I say somebody says to me, I feel happy. And I say, how do you feel happy? And they say, well, I have a feeling here in my heart that's nice and warm. And I see the experience that made me happy right here in front of me. If I ask them the right questions, then I know how they do happy. Somebody else might see it in a different way. They might feel it in a different way. Some people have happiness in their belly. Some people have happiness in their head. All of these things you determine through self-observation. And there's a reason for that. Now, the last part of this is a three-level part. And the last part of it is for a period of time. So we say, describe from the senses for a period of time. And that period of time is special. It is a period of non-judgment. And usually you're going to be able to hold this for very short amounts of time because we are creatures that love to make judgments. We need to make judgments. Judgments have kept us alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so to ask ourselves to not make judgments is hard.
It's a big step out of our natural comfort zone.
Yeah. And describing from the senses helps us do that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that this practice will do is teach you how to use your senses more acutely.
Yep. So maybe find a word, the terminology for this practice is self-observation, but sometimes we have relationships to words that are varying. But words that you can use that suit you and help you get into this place of non-judgment might be observing, might be noticing, it might be witnessing. But there's this sense of hands-offness about it that means that you're not meddling with what you're experiencing. You're just letting it be what it is without the assumptions and judgments.
Wael has a
Yeah, we got a couple of
oh,
things in the
yeah.
chat. So, um, yeah, I just want to put out there, that your experience in your body is your own. And, broadly speaking, no one can, say that you're wrong for that as long as you're truly observing what's happening in your body honestly. So, if you feel things similar between different emotional states or whatever, then certainly that may be true for you and that's valid. So just saying. Liz says, how important is it to be describing this to yourself? Okay, no, I guess it got deleted. I was just gonna reread Liz's question. Any other thoughts?
Wael has a thought.
Okay, I think that's not sent to me.
Yeah.
I
Raphael.
was okay.
Yeah, Wael had his hand up.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I was just going to say that just from the Arabic, the word al-muhasabeh is such a perfect word. And whenever I convert it into the English of self-observation, more so with self-remembering, it's just, in my humble opinion, a really bad way to describe it.
It kind of is, isn't it? Yeah.
For me in the Arabic when I translate those two things they don't match, and because you're talking about something very very specific, I think and that's where I think Noor was saying about the words and using the words that are appropriate for you is genuinely a genuinely good point. I think maybe self-accounting is a little more closer to the feel in Arabic because we literally, Usama will also back me up. We literally use the word al-muhasabah for an accountant.
Mhm.
Literally, that's the name of an occupation, the accounting. And I like it because when an accountant counts in a business, they don't take it personally. They don't go, oh my God, we're out of stock. They just go, well, the stock is 19 when we have to order four more. It is really, really not judgmental. Whoa, what happened there? You guys
What's
okay?
going on? Oh, I think maybe yes, that's okay, Andrew. No worries. It was just like the equivalent of a butt dial. No worries. I'm
Okay.
sorry, what you were saying
No,
about
that was it. That was all. I
Yeah.
was all. I was saying the Arabic word is really good, in my humble opinion, as a person who practices this a lot.
yeah.
And I think the English word of self-observation is a really bad one. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Like,
think we would agree. As I remember, the route for the bill that you get at a restaurant, if, for instance, you happen to go to some place that, served really good food and ate a whole bunch, and then the waiter would come and present you with a bill, and in Arabic, it's from the same root as muhasabeh.
Yes, and it also comes back into the word mathematics, hisab. It's literally
Yeah.
the word for maths. So we don't take numbers personally, one add one, two add two, this divided by that. We don't freak out when a number comes up when we press the calculator. Well, sometimes we do, depending on what you're
Yeah.
counting. But the idea is the same. They're impersonal pieces of information.
Yeah, and
So
that's what we're looking for, is to make this as impersonal as possible, which will eventually allow us to see where we are mechanically inclined.
yep. Yep. One word that comes to me is tracking. Tracking what's happening. So accounting, tracking, observing, witnessing, noticing. We could go on and on. Find the word that resonates for you, that keeps you in that headspace of not taking it personally, just watching. There's another one. Thank you, Leo.
So we have a question from, or an answer from Raphael.
Uh, not a question, or not an answer, a question. But while I love that idea of bringing in the logical, mathematic sort of mindset into the presuppositions, like we're not taking it personally, just like an accountant, that makes so much sense. Um, my thing was when you were talking about, like, you see a snake on the ground, and of course you're going to assume it's the most venomous king cobra snake that's coming across, and then you find out it's just the beneficial garden snake that we all actually want in our garden. So it's almost as if with self-observation you have to go, and it just came to me, you have to go against your survival instinct, because that survival instinct is what has, and each of us has our own programming what survival is to us, but it's almost as if you have to go against that programming of survival, of labeling, of you have the two people talking loudly. Well, if you come from a background of a violent background, you're going to be like, well, that's the worst thing ever. But if you come
Mm.
from a very loving family where at the dinner table everybody's arguing about everything, the sauce, the temperature of the food there, and it's just a big love fest. It's, you have to go against that survival programming and then make it mathematical, like Wael was saying, it make it very logical, like, okay, that's happening, that's happening, I'm feeling this, this is sensation, oh, this is bringing up memories from the past, okay, and you just let it go. So I don't know, maybe you can comment on that.
See, you actually did
Yeah.
have an answer,
Yes.
and it
You
was a good one.
you have put exactly what we're talking about in your own words and relevant to your own experience and observations. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that.
And don't
Um,
miss that.
I've seen James unmuted for a while, and then I know someone else had their hand up, which please feel free. But James, did you have something you wanted to share?
No, I only just got here and I forgot to mute myself because well, the time difference thing has changed. You guys
Oh,
have been going for
okay.
like an hour or something, yeah?
Yeah, close to it.
Yeah, so that would have been starting at 3:30 my time,
Okay.
3:30 a.m.
Woof. Hard division. All right.
The good
Well,
news is that the evening talk will be easier for you now.
Look, it's often like well into an hour before the real meat gets revealed of any particular talk, so
Yeah.
it's all
Well,
cool.
that is the thing. You come here for the last 20 minutes and you get all the good stuff.
So
all right,
please
James.
continue while I continue waking up in a more
Sounds good.
conventional sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Wael said because I think it's extremely useful, this distinction between self-observation and taking account or tracking. Because I had put up a question here earlier and I deleted it because I disagreed with the premise of my question after listening to what you guys were saying. Because I feel like there's almost like a trap in the concept of self-observation. So I have a tendency to use the observation to validate my own experience. It's like, oh, yeah, I see where that's going. But I'm not questioning where the judgment that I'm using to analyze what I observe. So I think that's very, very helpful for me, that distinction.
Good.
Happy to hear that. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. And
Yeah, and I think that this distinction is one of the reasons that the Gurdjieffians have such trouble with this. I have not personally ever experienced a Gurdjieff group that really understood self-observation. And there are some groups that have weaponized it, which is kind of creepy.
hmm,
We did a whole talk about that once upon a time.
yeah, we did at some point.
Yeah, it was 2, 3 years ago
Okay.
when I ran across a pseudo Gurdjieff group in New York that had weaponized self-observation and self-remembering to exert high-level control over their students.
Yeah.
It was very
Um,
creepy.
I'm trying to
maybe.
remember what that was, how it was weaponized.
I will. We actually talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I will send you the name of the book that the guy wrote about.
Oh, not Manhattan Cult Story.
Yeah, that one.
But that's who we're right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, like I said, I've only just got out of bed.
But
Okay.
thank you for remembering the name of it, James, because
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. I was going to go look it up. Saving me time. All right. So,
So now this is where it becomes really useful. Human beings have been around Homo sapien for what, 200,000 years? They're about not that
Mhm.
long.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But before that, we are somehow descended, related to some other members of genus Homo and other creatures out there. And for most of that time, including most of our time as a species, out of 200,000 years, only the last maybe 6,000 have we become what is usually referred to as civilized, which means we've become stationary and developed writing. So we have a history. But before then, we had to live in a way that required making incredibly sharp judgments very quickly to save our lives. Those of us who could do that survived to pass on our genes. Those of us who didn't ended up as somebody's dinner. And even in the way our senses are arranged, this is evident. You know what our brains will perceive most quickly? I'll give you a hint. It isn't what you see. It's what you hear.
Yeah.
Hearing gets processed first. The reason for this, very simply, is by the time you see the tiger, it's too late. You are somebody's dinner. But when you hear that rustling in the brush, if you are programmed correctly, you can jump like crazy and prepare to deal with the tiger or run away or whatever you're going to do that keeps you alive. So we process hearing first. We process smell second. Then we process sight. And finally, we process our own internal dialogue. Smell is weird. I grew up in the desert. And to this day, I notice when I smell water. Water has a very distinct aroma when you are in the desert. Okay, we will miss you. Take care. And this is something that goes back, to our earliest origins. Our senses are wired this way. And we have physicians and anthropologists here who can either back me up or tell me that I'm crazy, either one. So given that we are hardwired for those kinds of events, we do not live in the scenario where that is necessary now. And those very, very useful responses to life with the tigers and bears become somewhat inappropriate here and now. For example, if I'm walking down the street and I see a red ball cap, I will get a certain sensation. And it's a little bit like the sensation of hearing something out in the brush rustling about. Fortunately, I'm self-aware enough to notice that not all red ball caps are on top of the heads of idiots. Most of them.
Yeah, gotta be careful about that.
Yeah, because you end up making these snap judgments that can be proven totally wrong. Some people just like the color red. And so when you get experiences like this of making snap judgments about things, you don't sit down right in that moment and do self-observation because that might be inappropriate or even dangerous. But you can bookmark that and then come back later and sit down and bracket that experience out and take it apart through this form of accounting so that you can understand why you were mechanically stimulated by that sensation or that experience.
What's interesting for me, I had to take care of something, so I apologize if you mentioned this already, but one thing that's interesting for me is that it's possible to do this over past events, present events, future possibilities that create feelings in us when we contemplate them. You can do this practice even on things that have not happened yet, because you're going to have things that you're sensing in your body that come up around that thing. And so that can be very educational in, oh man, I get really anxious when I think about that doctor's appointment coming up. Anxiety. What do I mean when I say that? Where am I feeling that in my body? Okay, there's tension in my neck and shoulders. What happens if I release that tension in my neck and shoulders? And you may find that's just a brief exercise. You may find that that kind of relieves some of the anticipatory stress around this future thing that you're thinking about. Or if it's something that makes you happy, how do you make sure you're not setting yourself up for crazy expectations of awesomeness that are unrealistic or inappropriate in some way? How do you sit with the feelings that come up around that and just kind of lean into the non-assumptions, the non-judgment, that kind of thing? Raphael.
Yeah, Nor, when you say, because you said it a couple times, where you can take this practice and kind of replay events. Like I believe someone talked about, I think it was Osama talked about retrospection at the end of the day, or
Mhm.
bringing that into the present. But you've mentioned going back and rehashing past events and sort of bringing your self observation to those events. Is that similar? And I think maybe it is. I don't know if it was Ouspensky or Nicole that had talked about uh, changing the past. So we've laid down these tracks in the past of what we remembered, but then bringing our current self observation or that level of attention to the past, and then actually changing the past. Is that what you're saying when you're saying bringing your self observation to past events? Like we're able to change what happened because we weren't aware of what was happening. Like we didn't have the full picture, and now we.
Change
Yep.
our response to what happened.
Okay.
With this, there are ways to actually change your perception of the past.
And that's an important practice. In my experiences, that is separate from
Yeah,
this. That is something that is um a practice in itself.
yeah, and it requires, um, for the most part, it requires the help of a professional.
Yeah. However, I will say that what we're talking about today helps make that practice possible.
Yep, it's absolutely true.
And it helps make it less uh distressing, because it allows you to keep that dispassionateness, that sense of grounding, so that you don't get swept into that memory and get lost in it and as they say, re-traumatized by it.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for that important question, because I'm sure other people might have that thought as well.
So, in the forum, we are going to put our step-by-step guide to self-observation. And anybody who's a member of the forum can download it there, and will help you go through the steps. Um, and you may find that useful as a way to remember what you're doing so you don't forget any of the really important things.
Hmm. Yeah.
For those of you who are not in the forum, uh, foolish people that you are, um, if you email us and ask nicely, we might just email it to you.
Yeah, that would also bring me to the idea that I did not mention earlier. We are always recommending people join our email list because, first of all, not everyone wants to be on social media, and that's been one of the most reliable means of staying connected for the past how many years now, even with or without social media.
Yeah, 6+ years.
Yeah. So, one thing we mentioned when it comes to breath work, as well as with any other practice, practice it when things are chill. Practice it when you don't have drama in your life that you're trying to analyze and pick apart, because that's going to give you that foundation of skill that will allow you to apply these kinds of practices when you're under stress, when things are tough. And don't underestimate the power of practicing in quieter moments. So I just wanted to put that out there because it's important. Okay. Um, Liz asks, what about practices and modalities where you engage with the sensations and feelings in some way and ask to learn more from them? Is that compatible with this approach?
It's different.
Yeah, I would say it's different. I would also say, again, that this practice can help support what you're talking about, Liz. It is not the same, but it can support it. Thank you for that
Just
question.
have to make sure that you're not reinforcing what it is that you want to work on.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, Mushtaq, but do you want to briefly elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, something that I've noticed about certain types of psychological process, often around trauma, is that rather than helping to take the charge off the trauma, it will reinforce the trauma. This allows groups of people who are working on healing their traumas to get stuck in that group forever because they just keep re-stimulating the trauma. The trick with dealing with trauma is you don't want to stimulate it anymore. You don't want to have the feelings of the trauma completely overwhelm you. You want to learn from the situation. You want to have the insights from that trauma, but you don't want to have to feel it over and over and over and over again ad infinitum, ad nauseum. That is not useful. And so you have to be careful that you're not doing that with any of this.
Is that helpful at all, Liz?
Yeah, it is helpful in theory, but then how do you make sure that, yeah, like are any more guidance on what are some ways that you may realize that it is happening, or what are some things you can do to make sure that's not happening? I guess just more, if you could say more.
Okay. How do you know that it's happening? Um, are you experiencing what you are working on in your body over and over again? Ideally, once you have been able to describe the sensation that brings you to a particular emotion, uh, you can let that go. But if you keep re-experiencing it, it can be problematic. And what you're asking here is actually an entire topic for a talk. And since we're almost out of time, we probably are not going to be able to cover it completely. But that being said, your question is really important and in some ways essential to this process. So we're probably going to make a talk out of it.
I'm gonna try to write down some
Yeah,
notes.
write that down because This is important stuff and we need to address it.
Um, so how do I tell if I am tracking or reliving the
Yeah.
experience? Yeah.
And sorry to have to put you off a little bit from the answer to your question, but it'll take over an hour to answer it.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it, and I would be shocked if you could wrap it up. So
Yeah, just
waiting for the future talk.
yeah, just realize that your question is really important and very appreciated, and it's probably going to save me the trouble of trying to come up with a topic of discussion for this week or next week or whenever. It might even be next week. We got tonight's topic, but uh,
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Osama,
Sama has to take off. Bye.
salam alaikum, take off, be good,
Assalamu.
stay out of trouble.
Or don't.
I'll try to. Love you.
All right, Ian has a question, and then we're going to need to
Or
wrap this
thought.
up.
Yeah.
It was just going to be an observation about something that I experienced with pain, which is something I don't have a lot of, fortunately, but it's an analogy to what Liz was talking about, and it's like the feedback loop, and 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 what happened was on Friday night, I was just sitting here watching television. And all of a sudden, I got this sort of stabbing pain at the top, in the top of the center of my right hand. And it started developing and it kind of got worse overnight. It's very difficult to get to sleep and so on. And then yesterday morning, after I'd eventually had some sleep, it had sort of greatly diminished. But then during the day, even though I was trying to not aggravate it, it started getting worse. So yesterday evening, I ended up doing something which I hardly ever do, which is taking a couple of ibuprofens, because I remembered that quite a while ago, but probably maybe about a year or so, I had had this feeling where I had a pain where it was feeding on itself and just in a positive feedback loop, the pain was kind of causing more pain. And eventually I took an ibuprofen to ease it, and it kind of was the thing that I needed. And it took me several hours to remember that it was a pain in my neck. um, but the point I wanted to make was that even though I tend to resist taking ibuprofen, I mean, this is only the second time I've taken it in many years. It was necessary in order to stop that positive feedback loop. And I was just wondering if there was uh, any analogy in the trauma case, because obviously you can't just take an ibuprofen and have that go away.
Hmm. Hmm.
Good question.
Well, it's something that you can keep in
Yeah,
mind
I'm going to have
for
to keep that in mind.
for when you have
Yeah.
the longer talk about this.
Yeah.
Good thoughts, though. I'm definitely gonna ponder that. Thank you, Ian, for sharing your experience and your thoughts.
I have switched over to gallery view.
All right. All right. Normally, I love to pester everyone to speak up and join us and, share your thoughts in the conversation. Mushtaq and I have to conserve our energy, though, because as you all know, we do two talks today. We are very ambitious. So we don't have to sit in the hot seat today yet. Maybe you will later. But thank you so much to all of you who hung out with us today. Thank you for being here. and for asking such, strong questions. Really wonderful. Hello to John's doggy. All right. So we can wrap up for now. We will see you in just a few hours at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time with self-remembering. We're going to be talking about self-remembering and diving into that just as we did this morning with self-observation. And as we mentioned, self-remembering is built on top of self-observation. So this is an important part one and part two, shall we say.
And it will be step by step how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the philosophical underpinnings, but the actual practical application.
Yep.
So be excited or not.
Excited. All right, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Much love. We can wave to each other, wave to everyone watching on YouTube, and we'll see you later. Take care. Bye.
Bye.